What path might you take in your quest for total health?
Optimum health that encompasses mind, body, and spirit.
So join us now as we head to the frontiers of integrative health and well-being.
With Judy Brooks
Roy Walkenhorst
and Michelle Bernhardt on Healing Quest. On today's show, we have a little bit of something for almost everybody. We have sacred spaces, an out-of-the-box recipe, and a music video that's really wonderful for our healing moment.
Also today, we're going to get some expert inner world guidance about dealing with the tough times in life.
The way you heal from trauma is not by making it disappear, it's by allowing it to really be part of our history.
Thanks so much for joining us today.
We have some great insights to share with you on our journey to better health, right here on Healing Quest.
Broadcast of this program made possible by
Prime, a daily dietary supplement designed to support cardiovascular health by boosting the production of nitric oxide. More information available at primeno.com.
Vital Choice Seafood, wild-caught seafood and whole food supplements rich in omega-3s. More information about our wild seafood and our sustainable practices is available at www.vitalchoice.com or at 800-608-4825.
The American Botanical Council provides science-based herbal information at herbalgram.org.
Be More, a monthly digital magazine designed to help you thrive. Every Be More issue is packed with information from nationally known health and wellness experts. Be More is available on request at bemoremagazine.com.
Brain power is something most of us have heard about all our lives.
Well, often that conversation involves maximizing our intellect in the sense of trying to get more out of it.
But our inner world guide, Michelle Bernhardt, has discovered that sometimes it's better to take a very different approach.
Thanks, guys. That's especially true when it comes to dealing with difficult times. As we go through life, those times are almost impossible to avoid. And frequently, our first inclination is for our mind to say, no big deal. But that usually doesn't serve us well, especially if we want to use trauma as a portal for transformation.
One of the things I wanted to do with this book is to correct that feeling, is to bring trauma kind of out of everybody's secret hiding places and to say, yes, look, this happens to everyone.
New York psychiatrist Mark Epstein is the author of a book called The Trauma of Everyday Life. A central theme of this book is that trauma of one kind or another is virtually inescapable.
Trauma as endemic, trauma as intrinsic to everyday life, that it doesn't just happen to some people some of the time, but that we're all, if we're not suffering from post-traumatic stress, we're suffering from pre-traumatic stress disorder, that the potential for trauma is with all of us. The way you heal from trauma is not by making it disappear, it's by allowing it to really be part of our history.
TV anchor and reporter Dan Harris was going through some traumatic times, including a panic attack on the air, when he read Dr. Epstein's book and resonated with it.
I thought, this is somebody who I could be related to. And he was talking about the voice in the head in a completely rational manner, without any of the pseudoscience, without any of the weird stuff that I found in from the self-help gurus. And he had something practical that he said you could do about it. The problem was, I really didn't want to do it.
Dr. Epstein's recommendation was meditation.
Dealing with the uncertainty of life, or of practicing dealing with the uncertainty of life. It's also a way of accommodating yourself to yourself.
When I learned that it didn't involve lighting incense or sitting cross-legged or wearing robes, that was a big thing. And then when I heard about the science, it says it can lower your blood pressure, boost your immune system, and literally rewire key parts of your brain that have to do with well-being and compassion and self-awareness and stress, I decided I'd give it a try. Meditation,
by making you aware of the superficial aspects of your mind, allows for some of the deeper stuff to start poking through a little bit.
And I remember I set an alarm for 5 minutes, and I sat on the floor, leaned up against the bed, and it was torture. Torture. But I learned something very important in those first 5 minutes, which is that meditation is not some hippie time-passing technique. It's really hard. It's like exercise for your brain, and if you're exercising correctly, it will be hard.
When I started meditating, I was amazed at the chatter that was going on in my mind and how much I was worrying and how much I was repeating the same thoughts over and over again. And I had no sense really of the reservoir, I would say now, the reservoir of joy, of happiness, of what else, humor, that was latent to my mind.
We live our lives sort of yanked around by this inner narrator, and many of us are so entranced by this conversation we're having with ourselves that we're not even aware that the conversation is going on. We're not aware that we have this voice squawking at us from the minute we open our eyes in the morning until the minute we go to bed at night.
Dan Harris says meditation has helped him deal with that squawking voice and his personal traumas. And in fact, he's written a book of his own. It's called 10% Happier and tells the story of taming the voice in his head, reducing his stress, and finding self-help that actually works for dealing with the traumas we may encounter.
There's capital T trauma, the kind that we associate with being in a car crash, a sudden death in the family, that kind of thing. And then there's what Mark calls the trauma of everyday life, which can be persistent feelings of fear, anxiety, loneliness, meaninglessness, that nothing is ever fully satisfying, in ways that we're not fully conscious of and can make us unhappy.
There's trauma inherent in existence, and we do ourselves a disservice to push the uncomfortable feelings about it away. My point in the book is that there's something transformational about facing the feelings directly.
Both Mark Epstein and Dan Harris agree that meditation can be a powerful tool for facing those feelings directly.
There's now a sufficient amount of science that suggests that this is just clearly something that's good for us and we should do it. And just as we take care of our cars and our bodies, we should be taking care of the one filter through which we experience our entire lives, which is our minds. And it will change your relationship to the mental clamor that is your life. And it's that voice that has you sending emails when you're supposed to be listening to your child, putting your hand in the fridge when you're not actually hungry, losing your temper when you really don't need to. It will just give you this kind of different relationship to it so it doesn't control you.
Well, Dan told me that he meditates 35 minutes a day, but he was emphatic in saying that as little as 5 minutes a day can be beneficial.
Michelle, I know that meditation has been a big part of your life for as long as I've known you. And I'm imagining that there might be some viewers out there that are thinking, that sounds great, but I don't know where to start, and I don't know how to do it.
Well, the first thing is realizing that meditation has value. Once you acknowledge that something can help you, you're more inclined to do it. The second thing is that there are two ways to get something in life. One is to go out and get it, work really hard, and the other is to allow it to come to you. Meditation creates the space for you to receive it. Also, when you're going through a difficult time, there is something about meditation that connects you to your inner strength and to something bigger than yourself. A great being once said, praying is talking to God and meditating is listening.
Thanks, Michelle, and thank you so much for all the great reports that you've brought us this season on using trauma as a portal for transformation.
Thanks, Judy. This has been a great experience, but before we finish today, I have one more thing I'd like to share with our viewers. This season, we've met some great trauma experts and survivors who are really inspirational. One of those inspirational people is sitting next to me right now, and she's agreed to speak with us about what she's learned in her trauma experience. Actually, Judy, in the last 10 years, you've dealt with more than one major trauma, including a serious bout with skin cancer.
Well, I think most people, including me, I've never really taken skin cancer that seriously, that we don't, but the last little bout I had, they took off half my nose, and that was a little more serious. And, I had some great models. Olivia Newton-John, is a dear friend, and she was such a warrior when she walked through her breast cancer. And my best friend had had a double mastectomy, and they were just warriors and they powered through it. And you know, I really learned a lot about if that was how it was going to be, that was how it was going to be. And you know, that was what was given me for me to deal with, and it made me stronger and really more resilient.
And you also dealt with a major family tragedy, and how you came through that, I think, could help many other people.
Well, thank you. Yes, Michelle, I did. And 8 years ago, I lost my brother when he was murdered. And that's like a big, shocking thing. I mean, there is no place to put that inside. You don't have a box for that. There's no place that goes. And in addition to dealing with that, my own grief, you know, I stepped in to take care of my family. And then on top of that, there was a major investigation going on, 2 years, in fact, resulting in the arrest, thank goodness, and conviction of the men who did this to my brother. Anyway, you know, in the course of all that, the stress just never let up, and I had some very difficult days. And finally, Roy said to me, "You've got to get help. I mean, you've really got to get help." So I did, and I was diagnosed with PTSD, and I used EMDR therapy, I used acupuncture, you know, energy work, and it finally kind of brought me back to myself. And I'm not saying that, you know, I don't still get triggered. And doing this series, I've been triggered a lot. It's a process. It's really a process. And so what I would say to anybody who is dealing with any kind of traumatic experience, and you know, if you had a broken arm or a broken leg, you would go to the doctor. So, you know, if you have a broken heart, you need to go get help, because it really does help. So, you know, I just really encourage anybody that is dealing with anything that they think that they'll never get past, that if you get help, you know, you will get better. You really will get better.
Okay, let's take a quick break now, and Judy and Roy will be back in a moment with more of Healing Quest.
We hear a lot these days about the need to avoid processed foods as much as possible. That's something our Fresh Living chef Sarah Snow very much agrees with, even with regard to mac and cheese, which so many of us love. So Sarah's here today to show us how to, in her words, break out of the box and make homemade macaroni.
I'm going to show you real food, real simple, homemade macaroni. The first thing we need is 3 tablespoons of butter. We're just going to let that melt. Okay, once my butter has melted a little bit, I'm adding to it 3 tablespoons of flour. And I really want to whisk this in. I used a whole wheat flour, which is why it's got a slightly brown tinge to it. Okay, now I'm going to add to that 2 cups of milk in a nice steady stream, continuing to whisk, and I'll bring that to just a slight boil, more like a simmer, before I add in my seasonings and my cheese. I'm going to cover this for just a minute so that it can come to a nice light boil. Now in the meantime, I have cooked 1.5 cups of macaroni noodles. Cook it according to the package directions, but you want it to be still slightly firm, definitely not mushy, because remember, this macaroni and cheese is still going to go into the oven and cook for a little bit longer. After your macaroni has cooked, rinse it in some cold water to stop the cooking process, and then simply set it aside. The process of making macaroni from scratch takes about 10 minutes. While your pasta cooks, you cook your sauce. All right, my milk, butter, and flour mixture is starting to heat up really nicely. I've got it to just a light simmer, definitely not a boil. And you want to make sure you whisk it frequently so it doesn't have a chance to burn. I'm going to add some seasonings into this. A teaspoon of dried mustard. I'll also add 1/2 teaspoon of cayenne pepper, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and just a dash of pepper. Turning my burner down a bit because I want to keep this at a simmer, keep it nice and hot, keep it cooking definitely, but I don't want it to burn. Now we're adding in 1.5 cups of cheddar cheese. This is a finely grated cheddar cheese. Just pour that in, and 1/2 cup of Parmesan cheese. My cheese sauce is taking on a slightly tan color, but that's because I used a whole wheat flour. If that bothers you for any reason, go ahead with a white bleached flour. but I of course want to make everything a little bit healthier, so I'm going with a whole wheat flour. So my sauce is finished. I'm going to add to it my already cooked pasta, slightly al dente. I'll stir that all together here. Now, one nice thing about this recipe is it's easily doubled or even tripled. This is a recipe that I make a lot of times for friends who have just had babies, anyone who needs comfort food. You can of course make it with all organic ingredients, so it's a very healthy dish, albeit somewhat rich and definitely in the comfort food category. Now this is all mixed together. I'm going to set that aside and bring my baking dish over. So I'm adding my macaroni mixture. I'm just pouring it into my baking dish. Now, to top it off in a slightly different way and to make it a little bit more refreshed, I like to add a little bit of vegetable. So I'm taking a couple small tomatoes. I'm just going to slice them paper thin and layer them across the top. And the final step is to take a cup of breadcrumbs and mix in a half a cup of Parmesan cheese. I sprinkle my breadcrumbs mixture right over the top of the macaroni. I'm putting the majority of it on first, and then I'm going to top it with the tomatoes and put the last little bit over top of the tomatoes. Standard store-bought macaroni, boxed macaroni, is creamy and lovely, but it's all that one consistency. This gives it a little bit of crunch, and then the tomatoes give it a little bit of brightness. Okay, with my tomatoes over the top, I sprinkle the last little bit of those breadcrumbs right over top of that. This entire thing took 10, maybe max 20 minutes to assemble, and that was with gathering the ingredients. This is going to go into the 350-degree oven, 30 minutes in the oven, and this dish is ready to come out. Look at that, all that oozy, bubbly yumminess around the edges there. So much better than boxed macaroni and cheese, don't you agree? This is a macaroni and cheese recipe that anyone in your family will love.
The link to Sarah's recipe and much more about her fresh living approach is on our website, healingquest.tv.
This season on Healing Quest, we've referred several times to the concept of sacred spaces and what they can really add to our life.
And we recently spent some time with a gifted artist who creates those spaces and who's going to teach all the rest of us how to do so. Jane Rivar is a singer, songwriter, storyteller, entrepreneur, and visual artist. Among her creations are numerous works of art made from feathers she collects. Connecting with nature is a major theme for her, and that includes helping others create spaces, both simple and elaborate, that celebrate and strengthen that connection. You teach workshops on creating sacred spaces. So with a beginner like me, how would you start?
Let me show you what I mean.
Okay.
I want you to look at the table and find an object, pick one, that just calls to you.
Yeah, this one right here. These are so beautiful, and I want to know all about them.
Okay, so now you just handed it off to me, and I'm going to hand it back to you.
Okay.
Give me your hand. What I want you to do is look at it. And I want you to feel it. I want you to wonder where it came from. And you can also bless it for choosing you, because it really chose you, remember?
It did.
Place it on the table.
Okay.
So if we were in a full workshop or a full session, you would take say a feather.
Yeah.
And you could start playing, and you just start laying things around, and you can go in a circle, you can do whatever, and I go, okay, that doesn't feel right to me, so maybe I want to add this, so I have direction, and I go like this, and I go, well, I think a stone wants to come here, and so you just play. You just play, okay.
I think this one wants to come here. Look at that, that's perfect.
And guess what that is? A moonstone. And a moonstone, when it's wet, becomes luminous, like the moon. So some part of you has a connection to that luminosity. So you've chosen that as part of your sacred space. And each day you can change it up, or you can blow them off the table and say, I want to start with something else.
You know, it also occurs to me that sacred spaces like this are an easy way for people who live in urban areas
Yeah.
to have a simple connection with nature in their own living space.
Right. Yeah, you can have it in a tiny, tiny area. You can have one stone and place it in your windowsill with a flower. And every day all you do is just cut one flower to add to the stone. It's as simple as that. It's the fact that I believe that spirit really responds when we honor its gifts. And so when we do honor those gifts, then everything falls in place, and we are showing our gratitude for life and for all the things that we're given. This is an action to pick up something and to hold it and to connect with it. And this, who knows how many rivers had to run over this rock for it to be like this. So it brings you into thinking about those things, not about your checkbook or how you're going to pay your bills or the argument you had with someone. It brings you back to yourself. And if you can be back to yourself, then you can be present for all the people in your life. And if sacred space does that for people, that one thing, bringing them present, then that really has value.
As you might expect, Jane has a very beautiful website.
So if you'd like to learn more about her, we have the link for you at healingquest.tv. As we just mentioned, Jane Rivard is a gifted artist in many ways, including a singer and a songwriter. So for today, we have an extended healing moment for you, a music video Jane created entitled Anything that is really very special.
Child in me, the one who dares, the one who dreams, unafraid to follow the stream, the one who believes she can be anything. Child in me, the one who dares, the one who dreams, unafraid to follow the stream, the one who believes she can be. I found my child on the water's edge, in the mossy grass, where I made my bed. As a child, the place I dreamed, where I believed I could be, where I believed I could be, where I believed I could be anything.
Wow, how beautiful and how very moving, and what great work.
Yes, and thanks again to Jane Rivard and everyone here at River Highlands Sanctuary, just outside Grass Valley, California, where we've been shooting all season.
That's our Healing Quest. Thank you so much for being with us.
Don't forget to follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and to join us right here next time on Healing Quest.
Broadcast of this program made possible by
Prime, a daily dietary supplement designed to support cardiovascular health by boosting the production of nitric oxide. More information available at primeno.com.
Vital Choice Seafood, wild-caught seafood and whole food supplements rich in omega-3s. More information about our wild seafood and our sustainable practices is available at www.vitalchoice.com or at 800-608-4825.
The American Botanical Council provides science-based herbal information at herbalgram.org.
Be More, a monthly digital magazine designed to help you thrive. Every Be More issue is packed with information from nationally known health and wellness experts. Be More is available on request at BeMoreMagazine.com.
To order a DVD of this episode of Healing Quest, call 877-544-4827 or write to the address on your screen.